What's up, guys and gals? I know it has been a long time since we filmed and uploaded anything. I got some splaining to do, so let's get into it. So, I don't want to try to sound like I'm making excuses, but I'm kind of making excuses. We've been awfully busy, whole lot of projects going on, along with some family things. So, all that kind of led to us into crunch time, projects happening, and most importantly, the garden being planted. That took up an awful lot of our time. So let me show you guys what has been going on, because I need to give you guys a bit of an update. So a few small things. You guys probably have seen before, one of the last things we did film was with all this new fencing here. Along with that, we've been trying to figure out a situation to remedy as far as the girls with their dust bathing situation. If I crouch down here, and if we zoom on in, we basically took a storage container, cut some holes on either side, and any sort of material we want to use for dust bathing, we've got that now protected. Hopefully it'll stay nice and dry. The problem we've continuously run into is any dust bathing material we use, no matter what we do, gets soaked. This over here was a dust bathing area that we even had covered. Let's try to focus in. There we go. And it was even covered from the elements, but as you can see, doesn't look very dry. Now, speaking of things being dry, luckily, so far, knock on wood, I can't reach it, but I'll knock on it. I'm gonna hop over here, maybe. Now, speaking of things staying dry, for those of you that have been following along with us for a while, you remember basically all last year, from spring and especially into last summer, it was so incredibly wet to the point that I swear back here these girls would have needed a boat. It got so wet everywhere. Wet to the point where we had to trudge out this little stream that travels along down to a little pond. We trudged out a little more. We've got a little temporary bridge. Sometimes it cracks a little bit while you're standing on it, so we'll have to upgrade that. That'll be another project. And as we head back this way, we can say hello to the Homestead kitty. Now, the other big thing, of course, is the garden. Now, we kind of did a lot of experimenting this year, and it took a lot of planning. Now, this may look a little chaotic, but at the same time, this looks great, because for it being quite early in the season for us here in the Northeast, we have an awful lot of green growing for what you might typically see in a lot of gardens. Now, the reason for that is we had done some cover cropping. We experimented with that last winter. We are definitely going to be doing more. We did a combination of cover cropping and mulching. There's not a ton of the clover left at the moment, but we had put in an awful lot of clover. We've got chamomile, lupine flowers, a couple different varieties of lupines, alyssums. So we've got a lot of things growing and covering the soil, because, you know, the worst thing you can actually have is bare soil. You should either cover it, mulch it, or cover crop it, or have something growing. Now over here we've got some of our tomatoes and peppers and various things. Now, one of the things that we've been trying to focus on is what I would call biodiversity. Before I get into that, I've got a chicken on the loose I got to wrangle. A couple, actually. How did you guys get out? So these clever girls exploited a little gap that was in between here. So I'll have to come back and just zip tie that. Anyways, we were over here in the garden. I believe I left off on a big fancy term called biodiversity. So, for those of you who don't know, I'll give you a quick little example over here where I left off with the tomato plants, and we got some pepper plants spread out. Now, one thing that we have stopped doing, which a lot of people do, is they put all their tomato plants and then put all their pepper plants and then all their whatever. Everything has its own little designated spot. The problem with that is if you get a pest that comes into your garden, let's say that really loves tomatoes, there's just a never-ending buffet of tomatoes until they're all wiped out and there's nothing there to prevent them from stopping. So instead, we do something like this. So we've got black beans growing here. Those are all going to trellis, and the big benefit with those is they are nitrogen fixers. So as they grow, they are literally going to pull nitrogen out of the atmosphere, sink it into the soil, where something like tomatoes and peppers and whatnot, they can access that nitrogen, and then that translates into more strong green growth, better leaf production, better plant production overall. Then on top of that, we've got mixed around, we've got some basils, we've got some lupine flowers, some alyssum flowers. You can see a lot of that flowerage all over the place, along with chamomile, which not only does it flower, attract in some beneficial insects, but it's a great medicinal, a great tea, things of that nature. And that same sort of general strategic companion planting is something that we've incorporated throughout. So we're hoping that not only this will be a really good growing season, but this is going to turn into a beautiful biodiverse garden with all sorts of things growing, flowers, bees everywhere. And speaking of bees, you guys may recall the video and many times that we've mentioned our comfrey here, and you also may have noticed one of our comfrey plants has disappeared. We actually harvested it, split it, replanted some in a few spots around the property, and the rest is actually over on the driveway drying, so that we can then in the future make more comfrey products. But in the meantime, look at this. I don't know how well you guys can see in the camera, but there are bees all over this. It actually did recently rain, so there's not as many bees out at this point as there normally would be. But the bees absolutely love the comfrey, and I'm pretty sure we actually have an acquaintance that lives over in that direction who has I think about 4 beehives. So I think a lot of these bees are his. So these bees are going to provide him with some excellent pollen from a very powerful medicinal plant. So I expect that honey will be fantastic. Now, one area that looks unique compared to the rest is right over here. This is the only area that we put down some of this fabric. There's another little experiment specifically in some brassicas like broccoli. Now, we have had a lot of issues with broccoli, not in growing it per se, but with pests. The problem is, especially up here in the Northeast, where we can't really get too much growing, and there's not much predator insects, as in your good pollinators that want to eat a lot of the bad bugs, things of that nature. There's not a lot of that out early in the season when you're going to plant cool weather crops like your broccolis. So one of the strategies is early on you cover it, and that will hopefully prevent, and seems to be working so far, this particular issue of moths that will come into the early stage of the plant, and they will lay their larvae in the plant. When the larva basically hatches, it will just decimate the broccoli, and the leaves will be all eaten up, and there's just very little viability to it at that point. Now, we will certainly get more in depth with some other things as the growing season continues. We'll be doing some more things with the comfrey, and one of the other things that had been keeping us quite busy was this latest project. And this latest project, I've decided, is going to be the start of another line of projects for us. But this was built completely free, entirely out of pallets. I shouldn't say completely free. It cost 1 box of screws, actually. But this we did as a little farm stand, and we'll throw up some videos in this picture so you guys can see. But we had done for our indoor growing setup a whole lot more plants than we normally would do for just ourselves, and so we had them all out at our farm stand. It was generally a sort of self-serve sort of thing, and guys, this was tremendously successful. We completely sold out within a few weeks, and we made a few $100s. And you know, for some of you that may not sound like a lot, but for a first real endeavor of trying to turn a profit from our little tiny half-acre homestead, that was pretty cool. And in addition to that, we are really trying to focus on making multiple income streams. We've got a lot of things planned. The Homestead honey, she's going to be starting actually a little side baking sort of thing, which could turn into some other ventures as well. For now, it's going to be some sweet treats, but maybe that'll down the road get into maybe some more bread making, maybe some wild ferments, some sourdoughs, things of that nature. But a start is a start. And so basically what I'm kind of getting at is, if you can find a way to source your own income from things right from your own property, don't wait, just do it. Just try it, especially something that's a low cost investment. I mean, it doesn't get more low cost than free pallets. It took me a little bit of time to build the thing, but it cost me no money. And our additional plants that we grew for our indoor setup didn't really cost us much extra anyways. We were already going to be growing stuff, so what's a few more seeds planted? So things like that to keep in mind, guys. Find your own food freedom, produce your own food. We are certainly making a start and a concerted effort to do that. Planting your own vegetables, your own medicines for that matter, but then trying to find ways to produce even some of your own income. And that's been something that has been consuming a bit of our time lately, and part of why we haven't done many projects, or many videos rather. We've been doing lots of projects. And then another thing, guys, this summer we're going to be taking a trip down south, and it is quite possible that down the road may turn into a relocation. We are looking to get out of the state we are in right now for so many reasons, and we'll get into that at another point. But well, some of you might be able to guess this is Massachusetts after all. But we're going to be taking a trip this summer down to Tennessee, and we're going to take some videos while we're down there. Might as well. We're going to check out some certain areas, and we are hoping, assuming that we like it down there, we kind of jive with the areas we're looking at, that might be a huge jump into our future in terms of a much larger property, a lot more opportunity, a lot more ways to create our own streams of income. So that is my excuse and explanation that I was alluding to before. A whole lot going on, potential big moves, part of the reason why we've been really working on this house here. In the meantime, we are going to try to focus on getting some more videos out for you guys, because really I do appreciate everyone who has subscribed, watched our videos and all that, and I don't take that lightly. It's incredible to me that we even have the subscribers we have right now. Last I checked, about 250. So that's not nothing at all. So I appreciate you guys, and we're going to try to keep these videos coming. So until the next one, guys, so long.